Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to part 7 to go over today, just to start out with our quote, spheres of influence. Alright, we are talking about after the death of Solomon, King Solomon, what is coming. We learned that Jeroboam has taken over 10 territories, we'll say 10 tribes of Israel, while we have Rehoboam, similar names, okay, Rehoboam, which was the son of Solomon, taking over the tribe of Judah. So that's where we're set here. We are on part 7, making quite great headway. We have an interesting narrative, and we will start out with this idea of spheres of influence. This is a quote from Hertslet, Map of Africa by Treaty, 3rd edition, 868 C234, line 10. Okay. Alright, so when we're thinking of spheres of influence, there's a few different ways we can look at it. When we're thinking of government and territory, it's basically a claim, I did look this up, a claim by a state to exclusive or predominant control over a foreign area or territory. So with that idea of a sphere of influence, it does make sense because we're talking about two individuals, Jeroboam and Rehoboam, having control over an area or a territory. Okay. When we're thinking of psychology, we have is more of a modern concept, right? The 7 spheres of influence. I looked this up as well. We have areas of family can influence us, economy, government, religion, education, media, and celebration. Alright, so with this, we can actually break it down to 3 spheres of influence. And this is, I guess, what I understand as a sphere of influence. Very simple concept here. We have one sphere being yourself. Okay, you can influence yourself. That's why we have this whole concept of free will. We can influence ourselves, right? We have our own ego and our own influence upon our own actions. We have control over our own actions, reactions, feelings, emotions, what have you. Okay? So we have ourselves. We also have God, or the divine, right? God is our second sphere of influence. That can kind of coincide with religion if we look at with the 7 spheres. Okay, that's a really big one. That's the one we should be paying attention to during this time in particular, right now. Okay, God as your sphere of influence. Then we have the 3rd, which is everyone else. Everything else, I guess we could say, to go ahead and incorporate what we have now as far as media. Family can also fall into this category. Government can also fall into this category. Economy can also fall into this category. Everything else. With that, who do you think has the greatest pull, right? I'll leave this as a rhetorical question. We don't even need to decide on this right away because, again, that's up to you. And we have these 3 spheres as somewhat of a Venn diagram, right? We have ourselves and God can intersect. We have ourselves and others can intersect. We have God and others can intersect, right? We have these spheres moving, rotating at all times, right? Can rotate in different directions, and then they can morph together and come apart. They can morph together and come apart. All 3 of them can come together and come apart. We can think of this as the influence that is going on all around us all the time, 24/7. So we'll go ahead and read this narrative today, and we'll go ahead and apply these spheres of influence throughout, thinking about at which time each individual is influenced. Okay, so let's begin with chapter 12, verse 19. It says, "So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day." And when we think about who Israel is rebelling against, and we think about the house of David, just think Rehoboam. I know the names are very similar. We have Jeroboam, and Rehoboam. Rehoboam is the son of Solomon, aka House of David, okay? Israel has rebelled, okay? It says here, though, Jeroboam, the other one, right? He was of high status. He started to rebel against Rehoboam as well. He took control over all the other territories besides Judah. He took control. And he thought to himself, the kingdom will now likely revert to the house of David. If these people go up to offer sacrifices at the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, they will give their allegiance to their lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. They will kill me and return to Rehoboam. So Jeroboam has this thought, right? Where did this thought come from? It doesn't seem like it's coming from the people because, they're in rebellion against the house of David. They're pretty set in stone on not returning to the allegiance of house of David. This does not come from God, right? So where does this fear come from? Inside himself, right? He is influencing himself to go ahead and conjure up this fear that the people will kill him and rebel against him if they go to worship God in Jerusalem. The people are going back to Jerusalem in the realm of Rehoboam, and he has this pretty irrational fear, I would say. It does not really hold any place. This is something he entirely created. So what he did is he sought some advice, okay? So he has the second sphere coming into his own self-sphere. He's seeking advice from who? Does not say the Lord, so from everybody else, right? From the officials, what have you. After seeking advice, the king made 2 golden calves. He said to the people, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. And this thing became a sin. Really, of course it did. So he seeks advice from somebody, whoever else, and he constructs idols, okay? And he wants the people to not have to go to Jerusalem and be in the realm of Rehoboam. So he puts them as far as Dan and Bethel, and people will go there and worship to these idols, these golden calves. And at the very end it says this thing became a sin, okay? Because nothing new is under the sun. Of course, the action of creating idols and, commanding a people to worship these idols seems like a pretty solid offense, but it's nothing that wasn't done before, okay? People have been doing this sort of thing, this idol worship, since the beginning of time. So it says here it became a sin, right? It led to a sin, and we did talk about that delay that sin has. Sometimes it's not really the action itself. It could be old news and has no effect. Abraham had spoken about this. This worship of anything other than Allah does not do you good, nor does it do you harm. So of course, it's one of the 10 commandments. It is a sin, but this thing of the delayed effect, what does this lead to, is almost more of a sin than the actual action of this itself. That's kind of what this is getting at here. Alright. It says here, by word of the Lord, change this here. By word of the Lord, a man of God came from Judah to Bethel, as Jeroboam was standing by the altar making an offering. So this man, right? This man, he doesn't have a name. He's just referred to as the man of God. What sphere does he have? Obviously, right? The divine God. He comes and he warns Jeroboam. He says, the kingdom will be ripped from you. This altar, it's a terrible thing. And it says here that same day, he says, this is the sign the Lord has declared. The altar will be split apart and the ashes will be poured out. So not only does he declare this splitting, he says, the priests that you are electing, Jeroboam was electing a lot of priests that were not from the Levite bloodline, just anybody and everybody. We'll learn about this. That's a big thing that we'll talk about. But anyways, he declared that the altar will be split apart. The king said, all right, well, we'll pause here because I did leave some parts out, but this is what occurs. The moment he said that, Jeroboam points to the man, sees him, and at that moment, Jeroboam's arm shrivels up. He cannot retract his arm. It shrivels up as he's pointing, and he's grief-stricken. He's like, please restore my arm. He petitions to this man of God to restore his arm, and he does so. Meanwhile, too, the altar was split in half at that time. Okay, the altar was split, ashes poured out. Exactly what the man of God said was going to happen happened. Okay, so this is great divination here. King, after his arm was restored, he said to the man of God, come home with me for a meal, and I will give you a gift. So he was grateful. He was in gratitude. But the man of God answered the king, even if you were to give me half of your possessions, I would not go with you, nor would I eat bread or drink water here. So this is partly himself, right? He has his fear influencing himself. He says, no, you're betraying the Lord. I would never do such a thing. And he has this fear of God, who also said, you are not to eat or drink anything where you are going, and you are supposed to go back a different way than you came. Those were the instructions of the Lord, and if he obeyed them, he would be spared and rewarded. So he does initially, right? He goes ahead, he goes a separate way back, and he denies drinking and eating with the king. Now there was a certain old prophet living in Bethel, whose sons came to him and told him all that the man of God had done there that day. And he rode after the man of God. He found him sitting under an oak tree and asked, are you the man of God who came from Judah? I am, he replied. Okay, so we have this old prophet. Keep in mind, he is a prophet, so he has the sphere of influence of the divine or God. Additionally, he has this other sphere of influence, everybody else, his sons, his family, telling him, influencing him, this amazing man did this thing, you should go after him and go talk to him. So now we have two competing forces here. Let's see here. And this man, once he finds the other prophet sitting under the oak tree, he says, come eat and come drink with me, right? I want to talk to you, da-da-da. And the man responds, the man of God responds, I have been told by the word of the Lord, you must not eat or drink water there or return the way you came. So he actually tells the prophet, I've actually been giving these instructions that I cannot do that, I have to go. The old prophet answered, I too am a prophet as you are, and an angel said to me by the word of the Lord, bring him back with you to your house, so that he may eat bread and drink water. But he was lying to him. Okay, big surprise there. So the old prophet actually lies, just as we read. And here now the man of God is having some conflicts, right? He has God's sphere of influence still hanging over his head, and now it is combined with this mystery coming from the other, right? That an angel came to him. So it's kind of like he thinks it's God, but it's really the other who is lying to him. And he also has the third. He has himself coming into him at this time, and we can guess that he's very thirsty and hungry, right? He might be getting weaker, he might be breaking down, and the temptation is more than anything influencing him to give up his thing. And then he's like, oh well, the angel said too, which is really a lie, and it's somebody the lie, right? Yeah. So we know too that he is overcome with temptation because he's sitting under an oak tree. He's resting. He's tired, right? So it overcomes him. Okay. When the man of God finished eating and drinking, the prophet who had brought him back saddled his donkey for him. So here we go. Meanwhile, too, while they were eating and drinking, the old prophet actually has a revelation, a download from the Lord, It says, this man, went against what I said. And he told this to the other tired prophet. So they really don't think too much of it at the time, but I feel as though maybe the man of God felt, oh, I did something wrong. His heart sunk, right? Anyways, as he went on his way, a lion met him on the road and killed him, and his body was left lying on the side of the road with both the donkey and the lion standing beside it. So there was actually something too, as they were finishing the meal. The download had also come and said, because of this, because you did not listen to what I say, you will not be buried with your in your tomb, essentially. Because at this time, people would have a place that already is set up and laid out for them to be buried. That was God's command. He was not to be buried in the place that he had prepared for himself, because he let himself, grow weak, and he let himself influence what God has said, okay? Anyways, he was standing beside it. He was killed by this lion. The prophet said to his sons, saddle this donkey for me, and they did so. Because there was reports of this man lying on the side of the road. Nobody went to fetch the man or help the man. He was dead. But because there was the lion sitting there next to him, so people were reporting back to the village saying, there's this lion and this man just laying there. So the prophet knows this to be the man that he invited back. So he went out to go see the circumstance. Then he went out, found the body lying on the road with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. The lion had neither eaten the body nor mauled the donkey. So with this, he is not reassured, but he really knows that this event was due to the Lord, right? The lion does not eat the person. He did not maul the donkey. He's just there standing beside the lion and a dead man. It's beyond me. I guess, he was mauled, the individual, the prophet, and that had killed him, but the lion was not hungry, right? He just is standing there, sitting there beside it. Anyways, that is that. What happens after this is the old prophet who did, lie to the lion prophet. He takes the body back and buries him in his own tomb. And he tells his sons and instructs his sons, please bury me next to this man, right? He's truly a man from God, and, he probably felt a little bad what happened, so he gave up his tomb. Yes, that is the case with that one. So he did not get buried in his tomb back with his family. He was buried in a different tomb, okay? To wrap this up, it says, even after this, Jeroboam did not change his evil ways, but once more appointed priests for the high places from all sorts of people. Anyone who wanted to become a priest, he consecrated for the high places. This was the sin of the house of Jeroboam that led to his downfall and to its destruction from the face of the earth. All right, so we're talking about the lasting effects of sin. He was appointing anybody and everybody to become priests, high priests. Only a certain line of people, a certain type of individual could be a priest, and that was from the Levite tribe, as we remember from Exodus. That was it. That was the only people. Jeroboam went against that, started appointing everybody and anybody, which was really the great sin. And we think about why this is such a great sin. That's something that we can actually contemplate on more and more, ask for more knowledge because of that. But I do remember mentioning, anybody who is a priest now just might be from the Levite bloodline, or some kind of spiritual connection to the Levite tribe. I didn't mention this part here where at one point anybody and everybody was becoming a priest. This might be something that is continuing to this day, although it does say anybody and everybody. It says that here the house of Jeroboam led to his destruction, its destruction from the face of the earth. So maybe the house of Jeroboam is no longer continued, but this idea of consecrating anybody and everybody to be priests is probably a great sin that is still occurring to this day. I said it's very important to be associated with the Levites and to even have maybe some Levite blood in you if you are being called to becoming a priest, right? Dealing with the tabernacle, dealing with sacraments, that sort of thing. Just because we have the vessel of the Ark of the Covenant, even if it's not the actual Ark of the Covenant from the time of old, it's still something that houses the glory and the power of the Lord. So only a particular person can deal with that. There's lots of speculation as to why that is. But of course we have now priests today who should not be priests. We have preachers and congregational leaders who should not be congregational leaders. And this is very, very much a great sin because of the amount of people that they have influence over and the amount of people that they can all lead astray at one time. So I could see this, being a problem. So interesting. It wasn't even the worship of the idols that was really the issue anymore. It was the appointing anybody and everybody to be these high priests. This is here from all sorts of people. That was not the plan, that it needed to be from the Levite bloodline. Okay. Well, that's that, you guys. We're going to go ahead and speak more about this. We have a few more sections to go in 1 Kings. I have a feeling there's lots of drama to come, right? Remember your spheres of influence, right? You have yourself and you have the Lord. During this time, it's really best to just take everybody else and even yourself out of it. Take everybody else and yourself out of it, right? You have this ego. You have something telling you, within yourself what's right for you, and you should know, you will know if you don't know already, the difference, right, between yourself and the Lord. So we are called to do that, right? So take yourself out of it. Take your everybody else, everything else out of it. Focus on the sphere of influence of the Lord. That is the most important one. Because in every situation where even if it was the Lord and yourself, that was sometimes a problem, right? Sometimes yourself, given the gift of free will go ahead and cause your downfall, right? We don't want to be meeting any lions on the side of the road. No siree. Alright, well, thank you for listening, you guys. Happy Friday. It is the end of the week. Thank you. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you very soon.